2, 1, 2. I said microphone check. 1, 2. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me, like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Ain't nobody out here winning like me. Can't nobody out here do it like me. Just like me, like me.
What's up, guys? Good evening and welcome in to another episode of Ace's Wild Chicago Sports Takes with Ace and Tarbill right here on the Undefeated Sports Network. As always, I am Andrew Tarbill. To my left is the man, the myth, the man who once had the best hair in the group, Angelo Ace Camacho. What's up, brother? How we doing tonight?
What up, T? I'm good, man. Good Sunday, you know. Watched some Bears,
Absolutely.
put up some Halloween decorations. You know, it was
Oh, so you're one of
stuff.
those. It's barely October 1st and you're already putting up the Halloween decorations.
Here's my thought on decorations. We've talked about this. You and I have been doing this shit for what, 4 years together now.
Yep.
And decorations are to be looked at, and they're a pain in the ass to put up and a pain in the ass to take down. So the earlier I put them up, the longer I get to enjoy them. And then
before you take them
I take them down, right? And then that's why like Christmas is my favorite holiday, just because like I love that time of year. So like that's why I put my Christmas decorations up so early, because then I can just
October 32nd, Angelo's out there putting up his Christmas decorations.
No, not that soon, But we
got to give Turkey.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I get my tree up before Thanksgiving. My tree is really nice though.
That's a cardinal sin, my guy. I mean,
it's a fake tree, but whatever.
As a man who frequently enjoys Thanksgiving food, I think you got to give Thanksgiving its dues. But our guy Foster in the chat, he had hair once, and he hopes we're doing well. Foster, we are doing well, man. Good to see you. Good to hear from you as always, my friend. Hope everything's
real quick. I did tell my boss that I would talk a little baseball, and I just wanted to say, you know, Brewers fans, you know, I hate to say I told you so, but I kind of told you so. The story plays out every year the exact same, right? The Brewers are the hot team, and they do so well, and then the next thing you know, they make it to the playoffs, and then they suck. So, I mean, you know, at least you played 3 more games than the Chicago Cubs. Good for you. And now we're all sitting in the boat fishing, waiting for next season.
Jason Peters out there on the shrimp boat waiting for somebody to call him to be an offensive lineman. But
he's on the Seattle practice squad now.
That he is.
Yeah, Bears should give him a call.
All right, guys, so let's get right into it. We're going to talk heavy about our Chicago Bears this evening, as always, as this is a Chicago Sports Network. And, man, Ace, to recap real quick for those that didn't get to watch the game, I'm sure everybody's seen the score by now, but the Chicago Bears hand it to the Los Angeles Rams 24-18. I'm kidding. It was a nail-biter and got much closer than it needed to at the end, but ultimately, Shane Waldron was able to look like a somewhat competent offensive play caller in the second half of the game, making those adjustments, really getting DeAndre Swift involved. DeAndre Swift, 146 yards on the day, I believe it was, with a touchdown. Really good all-purpose yardage from him, highest yards on the team. So finally got to see Swift break out. I know one guy on this network was really down on Swift and thought that he was expendable. Yes, I'm talking about you.
Oh, or maybe, just maybe. Remember that time I sent out that tweet about, you know, Justin Fields and the Bears offense taking a step, and then they went and put up like 5 30-point games in a row? Maybe Swift was
send a tweet out and say Caleb Williams is going to throw for 400 yards.
Do we still call them tweets now? Like, I don't know, because it's not Twitter.
On X. It will always be Twitter.
Send out the X symbol, you know?
Twitter. But anyways, no matter how you feel about X, the Chicago Bears end up winning ultimately 24-18. Caleb Williams was very efficient. Didn't have the best stat line don't want to say the best stat line, but didn't have the most yards in the game. But he was elite level efficient. I will say that 8 of 9 against the blitz, which is a staggering improvement week over week from the 44% against the blitz completion that he had the week prior. So We've talked about it time and time again, guys. The biggest thing for this season is to see the continual growth out of Caleb Williams and the offense, and I think we definitely saw a step in the right direction last week. Sure, we ran the ball for 140 yards. It wasn't the passing attack of 50 passes that you had the week before, which, by the way, your rookie quarterback should never be tasked to throw 50 passes unless a team's corners are just all out or injured or sick for the day or something like that. So, I mean, even Patrick Mahomes wasn't tasked his first year to throw 50 passes. So, whatever the game plan is, Caleb says he's good with it. Whether it's to throw 20 passes or 50, he's good. So, obviously, last week we got to see the run game get going, and that was what was really successful for us the last year. And you saw that in getting the run game going, it did exactly what I said it would do, Ace. It made the play actions, the bootlegs, and nakeds a little bit more
unpredictable.
Unpredictable,
right,
yes.
for the
That's
defense.
the word I was looking for. Because when you're only gaining like 0.2 of a yard per offensive rush, everybody knows you're passing the ball. When you pass
to be
the ball
fair,
50 times, there's no reason to run play action.
Like you said, somebody on here was critical of Swift. Like, dude's getting paid $20 million for 1.8 average. Like, that's not going to cut it. And like, I know it's only 3 games at that
was
point.
through the first 3 games.
Right. But like, I don't know. I expect more, I guess, especially when that was your big free agent signing. I expected more from the dude. And I'll tell you, if what we got last week is what we can look forward to the rest of the season, I have zero doubt in my mind that he's going to be an asset and a weapon to that offense going forward.
You'll put your foot in your mouth and admit you were wrong 6 weeks from now.
Listen, I'm never one that's afraid to say I was wrong. Am I wrong often? Not really. But
Fair
you
enough.
know, if Swift makes me, it's the same argument, right? Like, oh, it's only 3 weeks. Well, it was only 1 week, right? Like, he had a good week. Now,
fair enough.
Can he stack on that going into the next couple games and make it a consistent thing?
We got a comment here from Foster in the chat. Panthers interior D is hurting with Dalton averaging 30 points. Also, the Panthers O-line is best against pressure in the NFL. Interesting stat there, Foster. I would like to see how Montez Sweat, obviously Kyler Gordon will be thrown out there in some blitzes as we've seen in the past, and then Austin Booker, Darrell Taylor, those guys, DT. I'd like to see how they fare against the offensive line. For the Panthers, we'll see what happens, but I'm most excited about what this offense can do. I feel like we're at a point where we don't really need to talk about the defense too much because the defense is playing at a very high level, right? From the linebackers to the secondary is playing as one of the best in football right now. And sure, there's some things they need to clean up, some missed tackles that they need to shore up. And I think Coach Eberflus and Eric Washington need to be a little bit more aggressive with the defense at times during the game. But they did blitz, I want to say around 34% of the time last week in third down situations. So they're getting out there and being a little aggressive. I'd like to see them put their foot on the gas a little bit more, but ultimately, I feel like it's all about this offense right now. Like, Andy Dalton and the Carolina Panthers are not going to score 30 points on our secondary. They're just not going to do that.
The secondary was the strength of this team, right? That's where we all looked at it and we're like, okay, cool. Where's it struggling? Defensive line. The secondary we weren't worried about. Brisker has been playing
lights
out
out
mind this season.
So the Panthers O-line, 194 snaps with only 6 pressures. That is impressive. I will say that. I did not know that they were that good, to be completely honest, guys. But again, looking at what we can do offensively, I think Caleb is slated, and I've said it the last couple weeks, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, so it needs to happen. But I feel like Caleb is slated to have a breakout performance against this Carolina Panthers defense.
So initially we were supposed to talk about, some good and bad that we watched from last week. And then we were going to get into these next two games, but it all kind of ties together, right? If you look at last week's game,
we can go in reverse.
If you look at last week's game, I think Caleb probably played the best overall game that he has as a Bear. Maybe not the flashy numbers like he had the week prior, but he didn't make any dumb throws.
Right.
Any throws that you were like, oh, that's going to get intercepted? No, I didn't see any of those. He didn't have a turnover. He took sacks when needed. They weren't unnecessary. He ran when needed. He also, what I liked to see was he took the check down, but he took it efficiently, right? Like that's where a lot of Swift's yards came from, where he was like the second, third option on a play. Caleb dumped it off to him and he made work with it.
And that goes back to what I said about his efficiency against the blitz, 8 of 9. It's because, in those situations, he's recognizing that, hey, I don't need to go play hero ball and try to make a big play, which, like, if that's the one thing that you can knock about Caleb Williams is that he tries for the big play a little too often, like, I can deal with that.
Well, and especially because of what he's coming out of from college, right? He was hero ball, right? Like he was the guy that, especially his last season, he was the guy that had to make the plays, that had to do everything. You know what I mean? Right. So like
now you're in a different system. You have playmakers around you that can go do those things for you and make it easier for you. And he's starting to recognize that.
Right. And also, like, obviously it's only been 4 weeks. And what I'm excited is that he's shown that he's learning from mistakes and from areas of the game week by week, right? Like he's understanding, okay, this is what I can get away with. This is what I can't get away with. Right.
And now to Foster's point here, sacks, turnovers, and picks are dropping every week because of that.
Right. And he's feeling more comfortable in the pocket, even though the offensive line isn't playing well. He's still, I feel, getting adjusted properly to the speed of the NFL and the lines. Now, granted, the Rams defensive line isn't the best defensive line, and he's not
trying to mock me. I can't understand.
He's not going to face a really stout defensive line next week or this week either.
But that's fine. Use it to your advantage, right?
Exactly. What I need to see this week is I need to see this offense take that, not just a small step. I want to see them take a significant step forward. I want to see them be able to come out there, dictate policy on what they want to do, the ball they want to play, do it against this Carolina defense that is banged up. They're not great. This is probably, and I know statistically they're not the worst defense in the NFL, but this is probably the worst defense you've played to this point. And you need to go out there and build confidence in your quarterback and in your whole offense, and let people know, like, hey, at least we're getting progress to where we want to be by the end of the year.
Right. Go out there on first down. If you end up with the ball first, go out there on first down and 10 and just chuck a dime to the sideline for 45 yards, 47, whatever. We've seen Caleb do it to Rome a whole bunch so far this season.
And that's a dude who I've felt has really improved a lot too this season is Rome. He's, I'm not going to say I break down film and I watch film and stuff like that, but when you watch him out there, like
I do, I watch.
He's able to run these routes crisp and clean, and that's something that a lot of young wide receivers struggle with when they come into the NFL.
And not only that, when have the Bears ever drafted a receiver in the first round that's played up to their potential? I mean, Rome is what you thought he was.
The Bears weren't known for wide receivers and quarterbacks, right? So,
like, the last receiver that you could argue that was a draft pick that was spent on for the Bears that was really an impact player right away was Johnny Knox. And obviously the injury derailed his career and everything, unfortunately. But
like every big name wide receiver the Bears have had, they've had to go out and acquire either with free agency or a trade.
You draft Kevin White, he plays like 17 snaps as a Bear. Is a total bust. You go out and you trade for Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey when they're both on the tail end of their career. Well, Marshall was still in his prime when he came here, but Alshon was on the tail end of his career when he came here. And obviously,
I think we don't like to look back on the what ifs of Chicago sports, but man, I'll
Right.
tell you, a better coach I think could have got that team to some pretty significant places.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about look at the coaching tree of the last like 15 years with the Bears, right? You go from Coach Wanstead to Lovie Smith. Lovie was great. Lovie was everything everybody wanted, and then he takes the Bears to the NFC Conference Championship game, loses and gets fired. Like, how do you fire a coach in the playoffs? Then you go to Mark Trestman, who won a Grey Cup in the Canadian Football League, who was so bad last year in the XFL that he was demoted from calling plays for his team as the offensive coordinator. Like, and then you go to John Fox, John Fox was a great coach 10 years before you acquired him in Chicago. And you
John Fox was kind of on the way out. He was just looking for some extra money before he called.
Because you go to a guy like Bill Polian to tell you who coaches football good, and then you go and you get Matt Nagy, and he looks like a genius for a year because of our stellar defense and
right.
Mitchell Trubisky, I don't know, playing 10 times above his level his rookie season and then regressing.
Bro, he was the MVP. What are you talking about?
Get out.
The Nickelodeon most valuable player.
He was a backup pick for the Pro Bowl. Like,
yeah, that was my favorite. When everybody was like,
"Oh, he made the Pro Bowl, as an alternate because the two guys in front of him didn't want it." But
right, he was a Pro Bowler.
Then now you go to Matt Eberflus, who, from all accounts, I can't think of the guy's name in the media, but basically the Brad Biggs equivalent of Indianapolis football. The one guy that you see on Twitter that's like, okay, anything he puts out is legit.
Right.
Basically says on record that he would bet his job on the fact that had the Bears not hired Matt Eberflus as their head coach, the Colts would have fired him as their DC. Like,
which is kind of wild because the Colts defense was doing pretty well that year that they took. That's why he came to the Bears.
I think they just wanted a fresh start after Frank Reich wanted to
now
cut ties and clean house. But
my big concern is these next two games. You play the Panthers at home, and then you go to London to play the Jaguars, who are an inept team right now, who are probably contemplating firing their own coach.
No, you leave Doug Peterson alone.
They're 0-4, and all you hear about is how bad he is.
I like
Trevor Lawrence looks awful. For a coach that's supposed to be a quarterback guru, Trevor Lawrence looks terrible.
Yeah, but he looked terrible under Urban Meyer, and he looked terrible under the guy before him. Like, Trevor Lawrence, I'm going to say this right now. Trevor Lawrence is not all he's cracked up to be. For a number one pick, he was the number one pick that year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
He's a bust. Like,
as of now,
not in the overall definition of the word, like rounds 1 through 7, but for where he was drafted, he's absolutely underperformed.
They made the playoffs one time?
Labeled a bust. Foster's right there with us. Lawrence was never all the hype. Yeah, I don't get it, man, but I think that's a very winnable game. Ace, to your point, I think that these next two games are must-win situation.
Yeah, we talked about this before the show.
Yeah, I hate to put it in that category and stress that much urgency. You're only 2-2, but the thing is, these first 7 weeks of your schedule were supposed to be the easiest, kind of the break-in period for Caleb, right?
Yeah.
And if you go out there and you go 2-4, it's not going to be an easy road ahead to try.
Dog, if they go 2-4 into the bye week and lose these next two games, listen.
No shot you're making the playoffs.
No shot you're keeping this head coach. And here's my thought on the must win, right? There must win if you're, as an organization, your goal is to make the playoffs, right? Which, by all accounts, that's what Ryan Poles was talking about in the offseason, was that he felt this team was good enough.
Ryan Poles said we're going to win the North
and never give it back.
And never give it back.
And we haven't taken shit yet. So if your goal as an organization is to make the playoffs, then yes, these next two games are must-win games because your schedule gets significantly harder after your bye week. You have all 6 division games after your bye. At the last 9 weeks of the season, I'm pretty sure all 6 of your games, 6 of the last 9, maybe 6 of the last 10 are division games.
Yep.
So if that's the goal, playoffs, then yes, these are must-win games. You have to beat
and in the
inferior
division
teams.
tough.
It is tough. The Vikings are 4-0.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, and to Foster's point here, today the 2018 first round quarterbacks might be the best in 40 years if Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are real. I think Baker Mayfield's proven to you that he's real.
And that ultimately goes to show
Sam
you
Darnold,
just how bad, if you're in a bad organization.
Carolina.
That's
where
saying.
Sam Darnold was drafted.
No, New York. He went to the Jets first and then went to play for Carolina, right? I'm pretty sure. But still, the Jets are the Jets. And then Baker went to Cleveland. And what people don't seem to remember about Baker in Cleveland is he was good. And then the last 2 seasons he played there, he was hurt both years and played through injury and still produced numbers. Yep. Like maybe not the gaudy numbers you want, but dude still played better. You know, and then he goes to, where did he go? Carolina. Both of them went to Carolina, which is kind of funny. And then Baker went to the Rams and played in a playoff game. I can't remember.
He went from the Jets to Carolina to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yeah, and then he's on the Vikings. And
so it just goes to show, to your point, what good coaching can do to a quarterback and what a bad team can also do to limit a quarterback. And
that's where I'm kind of nervous.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's where I'm nervous because, like, if you look at those situations that those 2 guys were in, right? Everybody was ready to run them out of town. You know, these guys can't compete. They can't compete. And then you see them go to teams where there's competent coaching. The Vikings head coach is probably a top 5 coach in the league, I would say. Truly, I think he gets the best out of his players. Maybe top 5 is a little bit of a stretch. I definitely would say top 10.
I can say top 10. Yeah.
And then Baker goes to a spot where you have weapons, you have a running game, you have an offensive line, and you have a coach that believes in him. And it's same thing with Jared Goff, right? Like if you go to a situation where
not the same thing with Jared Goff. Jared Goff is not the real deal. Jared Goff is an overrated Mitchell Trubisky who dinks and dunks his way down the field 5 to 7 yards.
I don't know about that, man. Like the dude played in a Super Bowl, like, and almost went to a Super Bowl with another team. Like, I gotta give dude props.
Jared Goff is not the reason the Lions are successful. The Lions are successful because of David
Montgomery,
Jahmyr Gibbs, Amon-Ra St. Brown, however you enunciate his first name, and all the other weapons they have around him.
Yeah, I mean,
and they have a great offensive line in Detroit. That's the thing. Like,
that's the thing, and that's why I'm scared because maybe not scared. I'm not scared. I'm worried because if Caleb, God forbid, this doesn't work and the Bears miss the playoffs and end up with 7 wins again, there's no shot you bring Matt Eberflus back, right? I don't care how well the defense is playing.
But here's the thing. I'm going to stop you there. It doesn't matter. If that's the all right, Foster's giving me some hate for the Goff take. That's all right. Goff is way better than Trubisky in Mitch's wet dreams. Never more than a backup. All right, sir. That was fair. I hate Jared Goff. I got a personal vendetta against him. So maybe I'm being a little over exaggerative, but
a hater is what we call them.
Ace, to build on what you were saying there, the thing that I'm not concerned about is even if a new coach comes in here next year, Caleb Williams is viewed by everyone in the NFL, everyone in the national media as a generational talent. Yes. So if he continues to progress this season and a new coach ends up coming in next year, which is worst case scenario, but if that does happen, that coach is going to be drooling over the things that he can do with Caleb Williams.
I agree, but
Foster's saying no, 7 or 8 wins. Keep Flus in. We got to stop the coaching turnstile. I do understand that it's frustrating to rotate a new new coach and a new system in every 3 years here, and that's what
It
we've
is
been
very
doing for far
frustrating.
too long.
And that's why they should have got rid of Eberflus before the season.
Yeah, but you do gotta look at he won 7 of his last 10.
Yeah, I get it. But
Last
also your general manager's on record saying he wants to break the cycle, right? Break the cycle,
Okay.
break the cycle, break the cycle. And then what does he do? They take a first round quarterback, a first overall quarterback, bringing in a coach who we haven't heard if there's an extension yet, right? So if there's no extension, this kind of a lame duck year. And if you don't make the playoffs, what are you going to do? Bring in another coach, right?
I mean, did you see Eberflus's house on Hard Knocks? I think there might have been an extension.
I mean, maybe, but also that also scares me, man, because like you can't. They picked this offensive coordinator, and he's shown until last week the inability to really make significant adjustments throughout a game, and he did make adjustments this last week, and I'm hoping that continues. I know that there's been a lot of frustration with DJ Moore and with going back to the Panthers.
Yeah,
maybe Moore has himself a game.
So I want to stop right there and hone in on that. I am tired of the crybabiness that's coming out of DJ Moore right now. That is not how you help mentor your young quarterback. And we gave you the largest contract in Chicago Bears history.
Yeah.
And you're walking around out there like a pouty little... I can swear on this network. You're walking around out there like a pouty little bitch. You just made the biggest fucking contract in Bears history. Be good to your quarterback. Help your young quarterback.
And maybe that's where the frustration is coming from.
With him on the sideline, telling him, this is how I want you to throw the ball to me in this route. Or even Caleb going to the receivers and saying, man, DJ Moore on that one on the sideline last week, why did you slow down? If you run all the way to the point in the end zone there, that's a touchdown. And DJ Moore is not allowed to be pouty when he's making mistakes as well.
You're right.
Suck it up, Buttercup. I'm sorry. This is the NFL.
Also, he is our most highest paid player, right? So our offensive coordinator should be doing everything he can to make sure that the guy you just gave all this money to is being featured, right?
But you got a lot of mouths to feed. You've got Roma Dunze, who you
and maybe that's the problem with this offense right now, right? Like as much as we used to bag on Justin for his inability to hit after his first read, maybe the problem right now is that there are too many options, and Caleb is just, I don't know. I think obviously
I love this take right here. We need to see more DJ, Kmet, and Roshan. I totally agree with the Roshan.
We've been talking about it for 2 weeks.
I've liked the Kmet utilization the last 2 weeks, Foster. I think week 1 was absolutely egregious. Gerald Everett is not a better player than Cole Kmet. There's just zero shot that even makes sense. You gave Cole Kmet what, 80? Did he get 80 million?
Yeah, something like that, around there.
So you give Cole Kmet a nice contract and use him. He's a guy who can go out there. He's fast. He's
right. He's the tight end going forward. There's no, if Kmet doesn't produce this year, no, Doug is your guy.
We're not putting Mercedes Lewis out there on 80% of the snaps.
Nope.
Mr.
It's
I
Kmet
fumble every time I go out there.
It's Kmet, Moore, and obviously Swift, because you just paid him, but I would love to see more Roshan. I think Roshan Johnson is such an underutilized talent on this team. And we talked about it for the last 3 weeks about when your offensive line is struggling, the last thing you need to do is get fancy with your running game. And he's the guy you give the ball to and say, yo, go pick up 3 yards, give me 4 yards per carry. And he's the guy, he'll do it.
He'll pound the rock, hit the hole hard.
And we were with Joey, our dude in the chat on our group chat, and one thing he's always preached is how much he loves David Montgomery. And you look at Montgomery on the Lions, and this dude is just a beast right now, just not going down, hit sticking people, and it
Monday
makes you envious to that shit.
Monday night, that catch that he had where he just straight up trucked the guy and then proceeded to run. That was. But Roshan Johnson, I think, really, Roshan Johnson is an unfortunate case of not entering the transfer portal, right? Like Bijan Robinson was the man, absolutely, in college. But then you've got Roshan, who was behind him, that was only used really in third down and short yardage situations. But I think there's so much more raw talent there. I mean, obviously, other teams see it because somebody decided to stand up and punch him when he wasn't even in the game a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because they were so intimidated by his raw talent. But
now,
no, ultimately, I think Roshan's a 3-down back, dude.
I agree, and as much, and that's kind of where the NFL is going, though. You know, they even you look at teams like the Ravens, where they got Derrick Henry and Hill, and you know, no team really has that 3-down back anymore.
That was
you know,
such
now
a
it's
dumb pairing.
Derrick was
Henry
it though?
And Lamar Jackson, yeah.
Was it though? That dude had the first play of the game, 87-yard touchdown run, and dude put up like that. That was a monster game he just had.
Yes,
and now there's rumors that Devontae Adams might go to that team.
There's also rumors that Devontae Adams may join the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, that's the stupidest shit I've ever heard. At least the Ravens make sense because they don't have like a bona fide number one wide receiver.
I did see our friends over at CHGO, Mark Carmen, asked Brian Baldinger today on the podcast if they thought that the Bears should at least pick up the phone. And he's like, no, you need to pick up the phone and get some offensive line help.
Right. And that's kind of where we're at right now in the season. You're looking at a couple teams like Jacksonville, for instance, is not doing well. They lose today, or they lose this week, and then, you know, Bears beat them next week. You're 0-6.
Right.
You know, you're going to have the opportunity in the bye week to contact some of these teams about, you know, acquisitions of players and this and that.
Right.
And
can we go get James Daniels back?
Well, that's what I was
going to say. He's one of the highest rated guards.
Last thing you need to worry about is weaponry for your quarterback. You need to worry about guys on the offensive line, healthy guys on the offensive line.
It all starts in the trenches. Like,
right.
That's the one. If there's one knock that I have on Ryan Poles, it's that he built this offense backwards. You start in the trenches and build outwards. Mm-hmm. And he just said, nope, I'm going to get every weapon, every talent that I can at wide receiver and running back and not do anything to address the trenches. I mean, I don't want to say nothing, but what do you got, Ace?
Oh, nothing. I was just, you said address the trenches, and like I've said that, and I've been crucified for my take on that with, oh, well, you know, they picked up this guy and they picked up that guy and this and that. And
well, you went out and you got Lucas Patrick last year, who is a top 5 rated player by PFF this season.
Until last week. He got work at guard. Last week.
Not really. I mean, he had a couple 2 bad beats, but that doesn't solidify a season. So Lucas Patrick and James Daniels, both former offensive linemen for the Bears, are in the top 7 ranked guards right now.
I think James Daniels, I didn't mind him.
So you've let 2 guys walk from this organization in recent years who are now finding a rhythm and continuity in other offensive lines. And sure, you go out and you sign Coleman Shelton. There's a reason the Bills were getting rid of him. Mm-hmm. You go out and you get, who's the guy from Miami?
Sheldon.
Ryan Bates.
Yeah, we just talked about Sheldon. My bad. Yeah, Bates. And he's hurt.
And now he's on injured
That's the
reserve.
problem. Like, every time Poles tries to pick up an offensive lineman, like they come in and they're hurt right away. Maybe they need new. I don't know. Something there has to change.
Shout out to the question Mark Carmen asked today during the press conference at Hallis Hall. Is Doug Kramer ever going to be NFL starting worthy?
Right. Because he's their fullback right now.
And Flus kind of said, well, you know, we really like what we're seeing out of Doug, but we need to see where it goes, blah, you know, pussyfooted around the question, so to speak. And it's one of those things where it's like, you've been developing this guy for 2 years now. Either he's going to have it or he's not. Like, and I'm all
and
for
if he's that bad
playing like shit, go out there and like let Doug Kramer take some snaps.
That's what I was just gonna say. Like
what do you have to lose?
Can it really get worse?
Possibly be worse than Coleman Shelton, who's getting.
And if it is, then that's a bigger red flag topic.
If it is, then it's time to move on and free up a roster spot. Like
for sure.
And Braxton Jones, who has played above his level since he was brought to Chicago, had a really rough week last week. And sure,
Braxton
he's not
Jones
100%
has had a rough season so far.
Like even Darnell Wright, who his arms and his length were a concern, even though he was a first round pick coming out of Tennessee.
Right.
Like that was the knock on Darnell Wright. And Darnell's played decent overall, but I would say he's played under his potential as a first round pick. Like Tevin Jenkins has regressed. I don't know. I don't get it, man. Like, and Tevin Jenkins said in the locker room interview last week that, well, we play to what we're coached. Like, Chris Morgan is not going out there and telling you to get laid on your ass every week, and if he is, he should be fired immediately. Like,
right, and
I don't understand.
That's where this whole thing is really hindering on. If they don't make the playoffs, I feel like there needs to be, and it doesn't have to be, oh, Flus was a terrible coach. No, it could be Ryan Poles being like, hey, we appreciate the hard work that Matt did. He helped us develop and bring in good talent and worked with what we gave him.
And he's accepting the defensive coordinator position so we can bring in an offensive-minded head coach.
Right.
Like,
but we need scenario, it was like with Joe Madden, right? When the Cubs brought him in, or no, it's like, for instance, it's the David Ross thing right now with Craig Counsell, right? They were like, yeah, Rossi was a great dude. He did what he needed to do, but we're looking for a guy that can take us from this point to the next level. And I mean, as a Cubs fan, it's annoying that they did that, and now they had the same exact record, but I digress on that. You have to be open to all possibilities for the rest of the season, especially with the inconsistencies on offense. If this offense continues to struggle, I don't care that you signed Waldron to 4 years, I think, or 3 years, some shit like that. You need to go into the rest of these games, the rest of this year, and realize, like, if the offense that we watched the last 4 weeks goes in against teams like Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit, they're
going to get killed.
They're going to get killed. Your defense can only do so much. There's going to be games where your offense needs to be right, where you're going to be in like yesterday's game. There's going to be games where you need to put up 34 points to beat a team.
Yeah.
Your defense can only do so much. Is this offense? Do you feel comfortable if this offense was like, hey, we need you to score 27 points against this team? I don't. Not yet.
Let's talk again about that after this week. I think this is the week that the offense puts up 28-ish.
I agree, but again, we just discussed how this is one of the worst defenses they've played. So I'm
right, but sometimes that's a momentum builder when you need it.
Like, I 100% agree with you.
Threw 6 touchdowns against a terrible Tampa Bay defense, and then was lights out the rest of the year.
I'm 100% in agreement on it.
Okay,
but when you're playing inferior competition, you need to show that competition is inferior, right?
Yeah,
do not go out there and be in a 13-7 game against a defense that you should put up 27 points against.
Kind of like how we were unable to run the ball against the worst run defense.
Exactly.
With Buckner out. Yeah.
Right. Like you can't do that again. This defense is one of the worst you've played. You need to go out there and show that this is a bad defense. Because if it was the Bears defense, damn well a team would go out there and drop 46 points on them, and I'd be crying on my couch for an hour and a half.
Absolutely. So, that's the thing, Ace, right? That's what it boils down to, is that we need the Chicago Bears offensive unit as a whole to have a good week. The offensive line, the talent is great. The offensive line doesn't have to be great. They just need to be where they were last season, which was average. Middle of the pack, ranked 16th out of 32 teams.
Right.
If you can get back to that, I truly think this offense will be exceptional with Caleb Williams at the helm. I mean, you've seen time and time again when Caleb has a clean pocket and time to make his 5-step drop, read through his progressions, and just drop a dime. He puts the what is it? The bread in the basket, so to speak.
He slings the pill. I think you watched it the first 3 weeks, right? When he was under pressure, he wasn't comfortable.
Right.
Last week you watched, okay, I know I'm going to be under pressure, so I've got to get through my reads quickly. And
Right.
if it's not there, I have the check down. And that's one thing they did well last week was scheming to get the check down open. They did a great job with that. I would love to see this week be a week where, and I'm not saying Caleb's got to go nuts. Like, I don't need a 5 touchdown, 500-yard game, but a nice,
I want it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, duh. Every week I want that type of shit, but a good 250, 275 with 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think that would be a phenomenal game for Caleb Williams. And that's the type of offense should happen this week, right? Is that type of shit should happen. He's been really well, Jesus. He's been really good at, for the most part, taking care of the ball. He had that one, what was it, the Colts game where he threw 2 interceptions. You know, it is what it is. Quarterbacks are going to throw interceptions. It just happens, right?
Right.
But what I've liked seeing is, especially last week, he made the read and he threw it to the guy where the ball needed to be. If his guy wasn't going to get it, nobody was going to get it.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Got a question here from Foster in the chat that I want to pull up for it real quick. Bears D going. Okay. Let me reread this. Foster, correct me if I'm wrong, my friend. I think what you're trying to say is last year going in to week 5, the Bears were first in run defense, and now they're 18th against the run. Why is that? I think largely the issue that this Bears team is seeing is just fatigue from the offense being on the field so little the first few games. Like, you know, you get to a point where your defense has been on the field significantly more than the offense, and they're going to get worn down and tired. And that's why time of possession is so important for the offense to have longer, more sustained drives to give that defense a rest, because it can be an elite level defense. Like you see in the first quarter and early in the second, usually the run defense is tight, and then it starts to loosen up later in the second and then after half. And I think a lot of that is the 3 and outs, the inability to sustain drives by the offense, in my opinion.
One thing I did like seeing was there were less shooting yourself in the foot moments on offense last week. There were still some, but every
time Mercedes Lewis has been on the field this year, literally every time he has false started.
So, okay. I was listening to, I don't remember who it was and where it was, but they were talking. Remember how before the season started, they were talking about the cadence of Caleb Williams and how he was still working on getting that. You know, I don't think people really understand the importance of the cadence or the difficulty in going from one quarterback's cadence to another quarterback's cadence, right?
And he likes to do the silent cadence with the clap as well.
Right, because especially
adds.
when they're on the road, you know what I mean? And you have a new quarterback. These guys have to learn his cadence and the way he snaps the ball and what he's looking for before the snap to make sure that we're set. Absolutely. And maybe, you know, I'm going to attribute a lot of these false starts or delay of games and all that shit on just growing pains with a new quarterback. And I think that'll get better the longer the season goes on. But I do also think that a lot of the time, the offensive line was just getting worked the first few weeks. And when you're getting worked and you're getting pushed around, you know, these guys have pride. And you know, a lot of the times you watched it when Caleb got hit. I forget what game it was. It was I think it was a Texans game. He got hit. It looked like it was a little bit of a late hit out of bounds.
Yeah.
It wasn't. He was going out and got hit. But then you watch these dudes get fired up, right? And like that's the kind of fire you want to see. And at times when you're an offensive lineman and you're just getting worked, like, and you want to protect your guy, like sometimes you got to just bear hug a dude and take him to the ground to at least give your quarterback the ability not to get dropped. You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying for sure. And, you know, like I said, I think this is going to be a big week for the offense, but the defense has to do their part too. They can't, you know, underestimate the opponent and go out there and get blown up by an offense that is led by the Red Rocket himself, Andy Dalton. Like
Andy Dalton revenge game. I'm just shaking thinking about it.
Hey, we spoke it into existence a couple weeks ago, unfortunately. But ultimately, I think this is going to be a good game for Caleb. I think I want to see him over 200 for sure. I don't want to see another game where he's in the 150s, even if it is super efficient. Like he was in the 150 yards, but he also had a 124 and a half QBR, which is excellent. Like no one, I'm not discrediting anything Caleb did last week because he did everything right within the game plan, but I think the game plan this week needs to be 30 passes for 250 plus yards. Like
I think this is a game where
have another 300 plus game.
Right, like okay, we beat the Rams, right? It was a total team win. You look at it ultimately. The defense came up a bit with big plays. Even the special teams, Torrey Taylor, off NFC player of the special teams player of the week. Good for him.
I could live with this stat line. Foster says Caleb throws for 265 and 3 tutties.
Bro, I want to see DJ Moore go off. I want this game to be a hey Carolina, thank you for what you've given us type of game where
thank
Caleb's
you for giving us Caleb Williams.
Yes.
While Bryce Young is benched. Thank you for giving us DJ Moore.
Right.
Thank you for giving us the picks that turned into Darnell Wright, Tyreek Stevenson. And
that's the kind of game I want this to be. I want this to be a game where you go, hey, look at the team that gave us all this stuff versus look at us. And go out there and show like we made the right calls on the guys we picked. Caleb is this, DJ is that. This is a game where I think you look at a DJ Moore like 110 with a touchdown, maybe 2.
Oh, I would love it because he's on my fantasy team and I need it. I need points out of him. It's been rough these first few weeks.
Yeah, they've been rough, especially.
Tarbill is 1-3. I'm 1-3 in fantasy, guys. That's
I'm 3-1, baby.
Like,
and I had Darnell Mooney
because I rolled with Caleb Williams, and like, I know as soon as I put Caleb on the bench for another quarterback, he's going to have that breakout game and score 30 points. And
I've always been that kind of guy too. Like, as soon as I take him out, and then usually I take him out, and that's what exactly happens. And then I put him back in, and it's trash the rest of the year.
Oh yeah, I started Dalton Kincaid the first 2 weeks with Trey McBride on my bench. Put Trey McBride in. He had one big game, gets a concussion, and then go back to Kincaid, who had more points the 1 week he was on my bench and has since done nothing. Like,
whoa, sorry, I was just messing with some shit.
Stop it. You are not the producer tonight.
Not tonight.
You're not allowed.
That's true.
So I don't know, man. I think this Chicago Bears team is headed in for something great. I'm excited.
You keep hearing like they're close. That's what all these guys keep saying. Now, let's stop being close. Let's be there.
Can we talk for a second about Rome Odunze's bro when it was unbraided? Did you see the clip of him in the locker room?
No, I did not. Was it nice?
You should take a look. No, it's massive, dude. Like, I don't understand how he fits his helmet on, but it actually looked really cool. Anyways, Rome Odunze, man, I'm loving the confidence out of him. He said he thinks that this offense is really close to breaking out and hitting that turning point today in the locker room interview, and he's going to be a big substantial part of that.
One thing I have liked is you see when there's disconnect with this offense, nobody's just standing around.
Are you like trying to mock me? I can't understand.
Body language again with my boy Cutler, but Caleb goes over to these guys and he's like, hey, what did you see that made you run where you ran? What do we need to do to fix this and get this on track? And that's what I like to see.
It's not a blame game. It's an honest discussion between two guys trying to get better.
Right. You want to see these guys click. All these guys, right? Hey, I know that DJ likes, doing a stutter at this point in this route to build a little bit of separation. I have to be able to allow him that to get the ball to him where he wants it. All that kind of shit is stuff that is these small little things. But once those small things start to click, this offense is going to be on a completely different level. And I have not seen anything from Caleb that warrants worry from me. Like, oh man, this was a bad pick. All this Jaden Daniels talk, like, whatever, man. If you watch
Whatever.
the games, I don't watch all the games, but I've watched highlights of Jaden Daniels. Like, they're not asking him to do a lot of stuff.
And he's got good weapons over there.
Right.
Scary Terry's a good weapon.
And hey, crazy thing, maybe 2 quarterbacks can be good out of a draft. Like,
Hey,
I know that's nuts, but
it's wild, right?
right.
So, you look at draft classes overall, man, and that class of Foster here in the chat, I gotta give him some appreciation. Thank you for your comments and interaction tonight, my friend. He truly has no worries about Caleb. I don't have any worries about Caleb either. I think through 4 weeks with Justin Fields as a starter, we were like, he's not progressing as fast as we would like. With Caleb, we're seeing steady progression week over week, and it's consistent. That's the thing. Like, Caleb has not taken a step back yet. Sure, he didn't start out at a great point, but he's consistently progressed week over week.
Right.
And if we continue to see that by the end of the season, he's chucking 4 tutties a game regularly. Like, and I'm okay with that. That's exactly the arc that we finally deserve as Chicago Bears fans, right? We've struggled with it. We talk about it every time the Bears play the Packers. They put up, in the last 45 years, the Packers have had 4 quarterbacks now with the inclusion of Jordan Love, and the Bears have had 44.
Listen, that stupid ass Sunday Night Football graphic that they show all the time, the Bears,
the 65 quarterbacks.
Listen, that doesn't, and obviously it looks terrible because
it's worse than any franchise in the history of the league.
I get it. There was a lot of quarterbacks, but if you really look at the last 7 to 8 years, there's only been 3 really starting quarterbacks. That graph doesn't also show that in one season with the Bears, 3 quarterbacks got hurt in that year, so they had to bring 4 different starting quarterbacks in. Like, that shit happens.
Doesn't matter.
I know
it doesn't happen to anyone but the Bears. Ace. That's the problem.
It doesn't matter, but it is exaggerated a little bit. After Cutler, the only reason there was a different starting quarterback was if he got hurt. And then after Cutler, there was Mitch. Same thing. The only reason there was a different starting quarterback was if Mitch got hurt. Yes, Mitch wasn't the guy. But they still gave Mitch 4 years.
Yeah, man.
They still gave Mitch 4 years. They gave Justin 4 years. Like, they're not just giving up on these guys, bringing in guys off the street because they want to.
Years.
No,
he was here 3 years. This is his 4th year in Pittsburgh.
Are you sure? Oh, yeah, because they didn't pick up the 5th-year option. You're right. You're right. That's what it was. Okay, still.
This is year 4.
Whatever, but like, you get what I mean. Like, the graph is a little misleading.
Andy Dalton was the starter here, and then it was Justin Fields.
Right, Nick Foles was the starter, and then Justin Fields gets hurt, and it's Tyson Bagent is the starter.
Nick Foles should have been the starter from the get-go, and Mitch should have learned from him. Bold take. I had faith in
Big
Nick
Nick,
Foles,
baby.
Really special, and everything else that entitled.
Packers suck.
And now somebody who I haven't thought about in a long time, who's now singing country music, former Bear Zach Miller, the tight end.
Oh man, that was a gruesome injury. Remember that shit?
So crazy.
Yeah.
But man, it's one of those things, Ace. I think that we can still go back and have solace in the fact that Justin Fields' ceiling is Caleb Williams' floor, and I'm comfortable saying that.
And this time last year, Tarbill, we were ready to run ourselves off the road with sadness, not even anger, just like they were 0-4.
The worst thing we're talking about is the fact that Caleb Williams needs to have more than 150 yards, which he did, being the most efficient quarterback last week in the league.
Like that, the arrow is pointing up for this team. Now it's just, can we just continue the up instead of like plateauing? That's going to be these next couple weeks. And we'll talk about it on Sunday's show, and, we'll get a little more deep dive into this game and then into the Jacksonville game, because I am not doing a pre-show before the London game. So
God, no, I might not even be awake before halftime.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Why they start that game at 9 o'clock in the morning? Is it?
Yeah, 9:30
or 9:30.
I think it's 9:30 kick, which is
Okay.
fucking nuts.
Like, why do you? First of all, before we wrap up, let me say this again. I'm fine with you playing games in other countries. England is only 5 hours time difference from us. You're telling me you can't play the game at noon and it's a 5 p.m. night game for them?
Yeah.
They would probably love that. Like, why do you have to have the game at 9:30? So it's a
Well, to be fair, I don't know what they do in London. Like they're sipping
2:30 p.m. kickoff
tea
there.
and crumpets by fucking 3 p.m. ready for bed. I don't know.
They're out at the pub having a pint
Yeah.
at 9 p.m. I don't know. I mean,
Right.
but either way, like, it's one of those things where, sure, if you want to do it in England, you want to do it in Germany, that's cool. That's fine. I'm all for it.
Just
but,
don't put my team on it because I want to sleep.
Yeah, or schedule it later in the day. Like,
Yeah, that works too.
Same thing with, like, why can't the Super Bowl be on a Saturday? Why does the Super Bowl have Sunday, bro?
They're probably going to push it back here 2 weeks. You know, you add the next week. You know, you got one more week to the season, and then
I misspoke. Foster's letting me know here. England is 6 hours ahead, but yeah, 9:30 a.m. and you got to pay for it. You can't just turn on your TV and watch the old Fox or CBS. Although I will say this one thing, like, I love the Fox commentators, but damn it, Fox needs the same camera technology that CBS has. Like, CBS's games look so much more clean and crisp in 4K. They are leaps and bounds ahead of what Fox is doing. Like, upgrade your camera systems, Fox.
How bad is Tom Brady?
Well, I mean, he's the GOAT of all quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'm talking about as a commentator. Because I personally think Greg Olsen was way better. But that's just me. That's a take for another time.
I love Greg Olsen. I think he should be the number one option on the Fox Sports crew, but that's
bingo
conversation for a whole nother day.
Yes, sir.
I mean, I literally I was so full of emotion when I heard that Chris Collinsworth's contract got extended with Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
I hate Chris Collinsworth with a passion. That man is one of the worst commentators in all of the NFL, in my opinion.
Well, you don't like the slide in from off camera. Like, let me tell you about this guy.
I don't even care about that. It's just, he kisses Aaron Rodgers' ass like consistently.
Or Patrick Mahomes. He definitely has a hard on for the good quarterbacks. And maybe that's because we don't have a good quarterback, so we don't really get that often. But
Foster saying CBS is the original, been doing football games for almost 60 years. Absolutely, my friend. And that plays a big part in it. I'm sure that's why their broadcast is a little bit better, more refined. But better picture, man. I mean, I switched for fantasy purposes. I got the multi-screen going on Sunday afternoons, and I switch over to a CBS stream, and it's disappointing how much clearer and better picture it is than the Fox stream. That's all I was getting at. But ultimately, guys, it has been a fun show. We appreciate each and every one of you joining us this evening. We are going to go ahead and wrap up for the night. We will be back with you on Sunday morning around 10:30 to get your Bears pregame coverage going. So thanks everybody for joining us. Be sure to tune in on Sunday morning for Out of Hibernation, the premier pregame show here on the Undefeated Sports Network. As always, be sure to go like, follow, and subscribe to the Undefeated Sports Network on all major platforms. We are out there on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, Instagram. Go join our groups. Aces Wild CST on Twitter, Undefeated SN21 on Twitter. Have a good night, everybody, and we'll talk soon. Foster, stay safe as well. Have a good night, brother. We'll see you soon.